Father, we are all your servants. We trust in your mercy and love. We trust also in your guidance. Direct the meetings of this council of North College Hill to make good decisions for all the people who live in our city. Give all the members of this council wisdom and insight to know what is best for our city. Help us to be fair and just in all our decisions. Bless us all to do the very best we can. With your help and guidance, we pray this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Call this meeting to order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It was only enough for over here.
I don't know where yours is.
All right, well, it's good to see everyone that's turned out for our meeting tonight.
Oh, she passed.
When Mr. Hedger is ready, he can call the roll, please.
Dukestein.
Present.
DeWald.
Here.
Underwood. Alexander.
Here.
Zorb.
Here.
Blythe.
Here.
Anderson.
Mr. President.
Thank you. I do have, I'll be right with you there. I do have notice from both Ms. Anderson and Ms. Underwood that they would not be here tonight. Ms. DeWald.
I make a motion to,
Excuse.
there's the word I'm looking for. Thank you. To excuse Ms. Anderson and Ms. Underwood from tonight's meeting.
Mr. President, I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Ms. Zorb. Motion by Ms. DeWald, second by Ms. Zorb, to excuse Ms. Anderson and Ms. Underwood from tonight's meeting. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Dukestein.
Yes.
DeWald.
Yes.
Alexander.
Yes.
Zorb.
Yes.
Blythe.
Yes.
Motion passed. 5-0.
Thank you. All right, you have tonight's agenda.
Mr. President,
Ms. Zorb.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Mr. President.
Ms. DeWald.
I'll second that.
Motion by Ms. Zorb, second by Ms. DeWald to adopt tonight's agenda. Any discussion? Mr. Hedger, please call the roll.
Dukestein.
Yes.
DeWald.
Yes.
Alexander.
Yes.
Zorb.
Yes.
Blythe.
Yes.
Motion passed. 5-0.
Thank you. All right, we have the meeting minutes from our council meeting on November 21st.
Mr. President,
Ms. Zorb.
I'll make a motion to adopt the minutes as presented.
Mr. President.
Ms. DeWald.
I'll second that.
Motion from Ms. Zorb, second from Ms. DeWald to adopt the November 21st meeting minutes as presented. Any discussion? Mr. Hedger, please call the roll.
Dukestein.
Yes.
DeWald.
Yes.
Alexander.
Yes.
Zorb.
Yes.
Blythe.
Yes.
Motion passed. 5-0.
Thank you. What do you have for communication tonight, Mr. Hedger?
I did provide council the copy of the Clerk of Courts 2023 calendar, and then I also forwarded a presentation, I believe, for the comprehensive plan that was from Mr. Mosby to council as well. That's all I had.
Thank you.
Mr. President.
Ms. DeWald.
Mr. Hedger, the comprehensive plan. Oh, never mind. Found it. It is in my packet. Just wanted to let you know.
Thank you, Ms. DeWald.
You're so welcome.
All right, up next, council committees, starting with City Community Development and Recreation. Who is our our vice chair for that committee?
I think I am. I am. I do not remember, actually. Let me see if I can find the notes. I know we met
If we knew the date, oh, Mr. President,
Ms. DeWald?
if we knew the date, it may be, I know that Ms. Underwood gave her meeting time to us. I wonder if Ms. Anderson had done the same thing.
No, she did not.
She did.
So we have met since the last rec meeting, because the next one is this coming week, right?
Yeah, so we haven't met since the last
Yes, we have
meeting.
not met since the last one.
Can we default the update to Ms. Anderson when she comes back?
Yes, so the next meeting is this coming, or the week from today, Monday, the 12th, correct?
Yes.
At 6:30? Okay, next up would be budget and finance.
That would be me. We actually have not, well, we have met because Ms. Underwood yielded her time. So I will default that update during that time. Otherwise, we have not officially met, and we'll meet again on December the 12th at 7:30.
Okay, so Ms. Underwood is not here, and those two committees did not meet, so do you want to go ahead and update us on what
Those
happened?
committees did meet. In the agenda, she yielded
Oh,
that
okay.
time
Okay,
to Budget and Finance.
perfect, I understand now, sorry.
We went through the budget, line by line, and we got through to, I think page 5. We did ask some of the department heads to come out, which we heard from Chief Fells. The others were not able to make it, and we will continue to do that at this upcoming meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mrs. Orb?
so, I don't know if this is the appropriate time for this, but, because it relates to finance. I would like to, I would like to propose that the administration and finance department do what it takes to present council with a temporary budget that covers the first quarter of 2023. And I ask that council supports this idea, and here are my reasonings why. Number one, the more I evaluate the document presented, the more questions I have. Number two, the budget documentation does not include revenues. Number three, when the fire department, the very large levy passed, there was a plan to have several $100,000 refunded back to the general fund, and I'm unable to find that money in the proposed budget. Number four, there is no ending amount on the documentation. Council by law cannot pass a budget if we do not know that it is a balanced budget. Basically, can we afford this as a city? And number five, by getting a temporary budget, it would allow time for the newly hired city administrator to be intimately involved with the information presented and would not be handcuffed to the previous commitment.
Mr. President,
Ms. Dukestein?
can I ask that you default those questions to Mr. Mosby, Mayor Nichols, and myself, and we deal with that via the Finance Committee, as opposed to here in the council meeting? It would be definitely appropriate to bring that up in the Budget and Finance meeting.
So I was hopeful that if council thought that this was the way we wanted to move forward, that they could start presenting the temporary budget at our special meeting on Wednesday versus having that time on the budget that we have.
Well, we have a budget, I'm sorry, Mr. President.
Ms. Dukestein?
We have a Budget and Finance meeting scheduled, and that agenda is already set. We talked about that in when we set the meeting, what that agenda would be. So the next time that we propose something different on the agenda will be December the 12th, when we have a regularly scheduled meeting. We can talk about that then, and then if we would need to revamp that agenda for December the 12th, I'm fine with that.
I hear what you're saying, but the agenda is set as discussing the budget, right?
Mr. President,
Yes.
I mean, so we'd still be discussing the budget.
Ms. Nichols?
I'm sorry if I could. We would most likely not have anything ready by Wednesday on a temporary budget. It would be more realistic for us if we push that date out to whatever your next meeting would be. You're talking typically one day, a day and a half to try to do a temporary budget. I don't think that's realistic at this particular point. It probably is more realistic for us to have something for the 12th, if in fact you're going to have a meeting that day. Temporary. If that's something that council would want, is a temporary budget. We've done it before. I know there has been some questions about this budget now, but I just would ask if that is in fact what you decide to do, that we pass the other budget sooner rather than later. I know in the past it's gone to March, but if we get it done before March, that would be greatly appreciated. If that's something that you decide. I know there are a lot of questions about this budget. And I do know that you asked for some additional things at your last meeting that we plan to present to you at this upcoming meeting. Maybe that will help answer some questions. But it sounds like Ms. Zorb has many more questions than the last meeting, so.
Mr. President.
Ms. DeWald?
Ms. Zorb, on your list of concerns, did you put there that we did not have, on last year's approved budget, we did not have a carryover number? We didn't know how much our balance was to start the year.
That is not on here.
Okay, could you include that with your?
I'd be delighted.
But we also need that for this new budget also, what the carryover would be.
I think I called that the ending
Oh,
amount, not the
okay, sure.
carryover amount. So I'll add it. I know what you're saying. Thank
So
you.
would it be possible for you to send that email to all of us in case others had questions?
I sure can.
Mr.
That's
President,
a lot to try to digest what you just said, so
Sure will.
thank you.
Ms. Nichols?
Tip it up.
I would prefer if we're going to have a lot of questions, I would prefer that they either go to Ms. Dukes Dean and she can forward one list so we don't have an email trail that has, and something gets missed.
Absolutely.
So I just think it would work better if you shoot all your questions to Ms. Dukes Dean and then she can present them to us.
Because we want to avoid
Is that okay with you, Ms.
telephone
Dukes Dean?
call, yeah.
Yes, I'm okay with that, and if you could, I would just like to include Mr. Mosby and Kirsten, as they are working closely with me to try to, we're keeping track together of all the questions to try to deliberate and get those back. So,
That was my intention.
thank you.
Are you good with that, Ms. Zorb?
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, did you have anything else to report, Ms. Dukestein?
No.
Okay, then we'll go to ad hoc, well,
I'm sorry, Mr. President.
DeWald?
So have we decided this Wednesday, are we going to cancel that meeting? Or just go ahead with what we've got and try to make sense out of it? My opinion says, did anybody ask my opinion?
No, we did not.
I'm sorry, would anybody like my opinion? I think that if we're going to.
Can we
look at
move
temporary
that
budget,
to
New business?
old business, new
Sure.
business, either one?
Okay.
If you want to make a note of that, then we'll
will.
move it to later in the meeting. Okay, thank you. So going back to rules, public policy, and public safety, their next scheduled meetings would then be Tuesday, 12/26, correct? 25th is a holiday here?
Sunday, 26th.
I'm sorry, the 27th. Tuesday, the 27th, because the 26th is a holiday.
Mr. President, I don't believe she had said that.
Okay,
If I recall, she said we'll meet sometime in
Okay.
December, but.
all right, then I will recant that statement. All right, any ad hoc reports tonight? All right, hearing none, we'll move into administrative reports. Good evening, Madam Mayor. Floor is yours.
I don't have much. I just wanted to thank everyone for coming out to the Christmas tree lighting. It was really nice. Santa showed up, as he said he would, and passed out bags of candy, so it was really nice. And just to remind council of the Christmas party next Friday, I believe the 16th is next Friday, from 7 to 11 at Proctor Center. I know we have guests, so I won't be long, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the mayor? All right. Move on to the city administrator's report. Mr. Mosby.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I would like to say that I hope everyone had a good and healthy and enjoyable and memorable Thanksgiving holiday. Second, I would like to yield my time to the consulting team, Urban Fast Forward, who have been helping us with our comprehensive plan. And I'm going to present Mr. John Young, who will then present the findings and the results of the second round of meeting and surveys.
Thank you, Ron. And thank you, members of council. My name is the mayor. My name is John Young. I'm the director of planning for Urban Fast Forward, and I'm joined today by my colleagues Casey Thierry and Jeff Racer of CUDA Studios, who are part of our planning team for the comprehensive plan. And so what we really kind of wanted to accomplish here today is really give you guys a status update of where we're at in the comprehensive planning process, kind of a brief reminder or overview of what the plan is designed to entail, some of the engagement that we've accomplished over the past year, and a look at some of our preliminary results from that. So kicking off, hopefully, okay, that is working there. The comprehensive plan is the city's visioning document. It's really the map and compass for guiding the city through towards the future. And so the city adopted its last comprehensive plan in 2007, 2008, around that time frame. And what we're looking at is basically how can we develop a plan that will guide the city of North College Hill forward for the next 20 years. So we developed the 2043 as the goal, as the year of what will North College Hill look like in that time. It's really the foundation for the city's land use planning and zoning, also for transportation and mobility, physical elements like utilities, water, electric, but also we've done a lot of diving into the civic capacity and organizations and a lot of the other kinds of things that kind of make a city the city and a community. So just kind of briefly, timeline of where we're at. We started in the fall of last year. We spent most of the fall and winter gathering data and preparing for our first workshop, which we conducted in March. That was a 2-day in-person workshop at the Clover Country Club. And also we launched an online survey. We followed up that workshop with an in-person engagement at the Food Truck Friday in April, as well as some other deep dive engagements with community organizations such as the Chamber of Commerce, as among others. So we then developed preliminary recommendations, some big ideas with our team, and started to kind of follow up with some of those organizations and groups and really build towards presenting that our second workshop, which happened in the middle of October. We just finished up the online survey portion of that second workshop. The survey closed last night at midnight. And so from there, we're going to go ahead and refine our recommendations, really take the data and the input and the comments that we gathered and kind of figure out, is this the right track or not? And so we just closed that period, so we're going to be looking at that data over the next several weeks. We'll be developing the draft plan, from there, and then we anticipate sometime in the beginning of 2023 to present that at our third workshop, and that will lead to the finalization of the plan, which we will then present to the city. We are right here in the refined recommendations phase, and to kind of recap further in depth what we've found so far, I'm going to bring Casey up here to give you guys the details on that.
Thank you. So I know a lot of you were at our workshop 1 we held in March, but we thought it might be useful to go over just a little bit of what we did there, because that kind of set the stage for what we showed at workshop 2. So we met with about 200 people via in-person workshop, the Food Truck Friday, these other meetings, as well as our online survey. And so those took place from March through about the summer. Here are the assets and challenges that really came out of those community discussions. Top assets being the location of North College Hill and its affordability, followed closely by residents and neighbors and really the sense of community that the city has. Challenges that came out of those conversations were issues with rental properties, as well as low community involvement and a lack of activities for North College Hill's youth. This is a word cloud that I think we've shown before, but we had an open-ended question of like, what do you want the city to be in 20 years? Since that is really the timeline of our plan we're looking at. And so this kind of gives you an idea of what people would like to see. They like to see more businesses, safe streets, cleaner areas, and an increased sense of community. So we took all that information from workshop 1 and used it to kind of come up with these different recommendations that we then showed at workshop 2, which took place in October. And leading up to workshop 2, we also held one-on-one meetings with different groups in the community, as well as, you know, the superintendent and then some staff as well. So workshop 2 was held on the 15th of October at the Clovernut Country Club, which was great. It was a really good space for us. We had boards up, and I know a lot of you were at this event. We had the DAV providing food outside, and they were fantastic. We really liked them a lot, and they're a great asset for the community. So we had paper surveys that we handed out, but really the meat of this engagement was just having one-on-one conversations with people at these different boards and showing them our ideas and seeing, you know, what do you think of the ideas. So this is kind of a snapshot of how many people we've heard from in workshop 2. So if you remember workshop 1, over those different meetings, we talked with about 200 people. A little bit less on this end. We've talked with about 138 people. The online survey closed last night. We had a few more come in since we made this presentation. So I'd say we're closer to maybe 150 people that we've spoken with. But you can see the chart there is from the online survey. And we had a pretty good mix of the people that we've heard from. So they weren't all just older people or younger people or all homeowners or all renters. So we've had a pretty good mix. And we anticipate doing some follow-up with additional people as needed. And I'm going to turn it back over to John to kind of go over our top takeaways from workshop 2. Then we'll go over next steps and see if you guys have any questions.
Thank you, Casey. One thing I do want to add is that one of our partner that's not here is Greater Ohio Policy Center, and they are doing our housing strategy plan for the comprehensive plan, as well as a 5-year affordable housing plan. So they have been a key contributor to the engagement process, and they're actually going to be doing some more in-person one-on-one engagements with landlords and renters and housing organizations within the city and the Cincinnati region. So with that said, our top takeaways so far from workshop 2, and like Casey said, that workshop survey has closed yesterday, so we're going to cobble together all that data and present more polished findings moving forward. But we've got a lot of positive response to the idea of a new civic square. That was one of the big ideas on one of those boards at workshop 2, and it's on the survey. And the idea of a rec center for the community was very popular. There were some questions about funding implementation that we would definitely are going to be considering as we move forward with outlining where recommendations are and kind of identifying what are the ways to achieve some of these things. How would we put kind of the idea up here, but then kind of build the plan out to guide how to get funding, what things to consider, and so on and so forth. We had a lot of positive reactions to these ideas of new housing developments. There are a couple of sites that we showed that had potential for having new housing on it. One such, a couple of different examples is the site just south of the Goodman Shopping Plaza area. Another one is behind Clovernook. And a lot of people did say they would like to see some single-family homes. The idea of a cottage court, which is a series of homes that share a common yard and the parking is in the back, as well as duplexes and townhomes. There's also a lot of support for traffic calming on main streets, such as Simpson and Hamilton and Galbraith, and we showed some diagrams of what that could look like. And there was also a lot of agreement for the need for a neighborhood association for parts of the community. However, we always ask this question, whether or not you would be interested in starting a neighborhood association if you agree that we need one, and not a lot of people were interested in starting one. So still, there are a couple, and all you need are committed 5 to 10 people to really get that started. So that was hopeful, and so. From here, and I kind of outlined a little bit of that in the timeline, is that we're taking a lot of this feedback, and we've got a diverse amount of feedback from our workshop, both in person when we debriefed on that, as well as the online survey. And we're going to really kind of sift through that and really kind of work out any adjustments we need to make to those main recommendations. We're also working to identify who's the key implementer, whether it's a person or entity or organization. And then we're going to begin drafting the plan documents. So one of the things that we actually did just today was what we're working towards is really cobbling together a complete list of our recommendations, not just those big ideas that we presented, but some of the smaller ones that were underneath that we discussed with people at the boards. And we're going to be spending the winter drafting the initial draft of the comprehensive plan. And we hope to present that to you guys in a public workshop in late winter, early spring of next year. From there, the comprehensive plan then goes through the typical planning and zoning process, which means that we then we present the plan to the city, and the city goes through the adoption process. That would be going to the city's planning commission for a recommendation, and then on to city council for adoption. So that's the general timeline of the comprehensive plan so far, and that's what we've kind of been able to put together to present to you guys today. And with that, I wouldn't take any questions or comments.
I have one. So some of the perspective plans are 20 years out. Will there be a timeline to say, hey, we'll accomplish this in year 2, we'll accomplish this in year 5, but this is a more long-term goal, we'll accomplish this in year 10, 15?
That's a really good question, and what we've been really working on with our recommendations is really developing that phasing. So what we're kind of looking at right now is what we want to kind of develop a framework where here are the things that the city and the residents and community organizations can do today. And then how can we build on that towards achieving that vision? So a lot of the kind of renderings that we had in our second workshop that you saw were kind of like, this is the realized vision, but there's increments in how to get there. So identifying what those incremental steps are is going to be very important to being able to realize that vision.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And is that in a correlative relationship with the vision and mission of things that are already going on, like we're making efforts towards in the city? Okay. And then my last question is, it's around community involvement. So I will say to you all, when we selected you, one of the things that I personally had a great level of efficacy in, and I think my counterparts here also did too, was the fact that you were really, really ambitious about getting community involvement. And it's dropped from the first one to the second one. And it's still, we knew that this would be a challenge, so this isn't me like spazzing out, but we definitely knew with our community, we've personally tried to get engagement and have not always been as successful as we wanted, but you all seem to have like very innovative ideas about how you could gain that for us. And so seeing it drop significantly from one event to the next, and even if you calculate from the first event where you had like 200 people participate in relationship to our population, it's still literally 2%. So what are the steps being taken to help get the community engagement involved as ambitiously as we had initially talked about when we were like in the selection process?
That's a good question. I think one of the things is, looking back, we conducted a lot of one-on-ones and small group organization engagements that we did not count on our second workshop. The second thing is that part of what we have worked really hard to do is to spread the word on these surveys and the workshop as well. So, I will say that in my experience as urban planner, getting those numbers are actually really good numbers for community engagement. You're not going to get, obviously, we'd like to get all 6,000 or so people in North College Hill to respond, but sometimes that's unlikely. But our engagement is always going to be ongoing, as far as you're always are free to contact us. We're willing to meet and present some of this stuff, as well as the materials that we did provide on the survey. We do plan to have those online, so people can continue to review them and offer their inputs, and we'll be able to take that as well. Do you have any, Casey or Jeff, to add on that?
I just wanted to say that that's a great question, and it's always an issue in every community we work in, and it's been an issue here, as you all knew it would be. So one of the things that we're doing is the process doesn't stop at the end of the plan. So some of the initiatives in our plan will be from what we learned about engaging the community in this city. And so John mentioned a neighborhood association. That's one thing that we think can really get people involved. Plus, success brings involvement too. And so when John talked about things, you asked a great question about phasing. It's absolutely true. Some things happen in year 3, some things happen in year 5, some things are going to be year 18, 19, right? But there's also what John calls phase 0, which are things we can do right now. And those are geared toward the month after the plan takes place, sometimes even before the plan gets adopted. There are those community involvement things that can happen, that can make the touch-a-truck even better. Organizations that can develop their capacity, so that next year the car event happens. And not only does it happen, it doesn't happen with city staff time. It's an all-volunteer effort that starts putting it together, so that the community is really engaged in that, and they've got a stake in it. So not only is our process during the plan that we're creating, where we're trying to get community involvement, our initiatives that we actually have in the plan will be how to evolve that community involvement throughout the next many years.
Mr. President.
Ms. Orb?
Go ahead.
So I'd like to tag on to that phasing question. So along with that, are the phases almost like dominoes that you have to start at step 1 and go to step 2? Or are they more of like a pick and choose, that we see what we have funding for and we can jump over here and do this one, and we have to wait till later to do this one?
I'd say there'd be a little bit from column A and a little bit from column B on that.
Okay.
With some of the larger ideas that we presented in workshop 2, that's going to be phased. That's going to be, for example, the idea of a public square. That would be, figuring out location, acquiring property, getting funding, getting design, and then construction. So that's a phased process. That's step by step by step by step. But there's a couple other things that would be more focused on opportunity. If you can do something, for example, I think about like solar or electric charging stations, like out in the parking lot. If you wanted to expand that, if there's an opportunity for grant funding to do that, that would be in line with a vision or goal of the comprehensive plan. Then you can go forth and kind of do that. So there's going to be a little bit of both, from like opportunity as well as kind of really pushing forward on those longer term big vision ideas.
Thank you.
Mr. President.
Mr. Mosby.
Thank you. Mr. Yuxine, you did ask a good question, but I think that there's also some information that's in there that has to be considered. So you got to read between the lines. So yes, the number of responses overall did drop. However, the in-person participation increased from the first. So what you have is another dynamic at place. So if that number increased, then the number of people that surveyed online decreased. Why? Well, actually, I happen to be taking a class right now, and we were going through this, and one of the phenomenon that we do see is survey fatigue. So just 6 months ago, we asked people to take an online survey. They're coming back again. We're asking them to take another survey now, another 10, 15 minutes, and some people just say, I just took this survey. So why am I doing it again? And so therefore they don't necessarily participate. So I don't think that it is a big surprise that we would see a drop from the number of online participants that we had the first time to the second time. I think the bright spot in that is that we have to look at perhaps the fact that we did get more in-person participation, which means that we are making some connections. There are some things that obviously I think, I don't want to say it backfired, but it didn't work. This time we actually took, we spent money to put out flyers and cards to people. So when, we actually spent a little more money to put these things in people's hands so that they would be able to take the survey. So I think, to your point, that tactic probably was not as effective if we just look at the numbers as maybe we had hoped. But I do think that because they captured the names of individuals who ended up coming out to the survey, those are the people that we would want to target and work with to engage them in some of the other activities. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Mr. President.
Ms. Dukestein.
So thank you. It does give me some clarity, but I'm gonna be a hardball here. I have to say the hard stuff because I am very ambitious about getting out of this what we want to get out of it. And I feel like that's a very true, Mr. Mosby, clarifying assessment of what is, especially the part about survey fatigue, because I thought about my own self and repeating it, and I was like, I'm not doing it. So, but I did it. I'm just saying, I get that. But I do feel like one of the selling points for you all particularly was the community engagement. So I am hard pressed to see that. I don't think a small or even a decline from one survey to the next is to say, oh my gosh, they're not doing their jobs, but it is to say, what are we going to do forward to continue to get that community engagement? Because for me, it seems like it should be a rolling ball where over time, and you answered that in some of it, it's going to be as people start to see results, they're going to get more engaged, which I totally agree with. When people everybody wants to get on with a good thing. When they start to see the results of some of the manifestations of the work, they will get on board. But I specifically remember saying, like, are we at a point where we need to start evaluating, are we knocking on doors, or is it just what is next? I just don't want to lose the community engagement, because if the earlier people get sold into and having stock into what we're doing here, I think that it will only yield us much fruit in the end. So I just don't want to lose that momentum, because we had a very good turnout. And then I also am asking because maybe I need to reset my expectations of what community involvement looks like on our population, because I heard you say that I heard him say that you don't expect 6,000 people to respond. I don't necessarily expect over half, or that would almost be like close to 75% or 60%. That's a big number. But I do not expect 2%.
I can see your concern on that. And with surveys, and for example, when we look at larger kind of analytics firms like Nielsen, and for example, those are always going to be a very small comparative to the sample size. When surveys are conducted, there's a couple of things that have to be considered. I think Ron kind of hit on some of that. One of that is reach. This was shared on social media. This was shared physically with flyers. This was distributed. We distributed postcards. So it's hard to estimate what that reach is, but I believe that our reach for Workshop 2 was actually larger than our reach for Workshop 1. We are always open to continuing to keep that engagement window open. However, at a certain point, we do need to close it so we can move on to actually writing the plan. And then the third thing is that there's another opportunity to do a full engagement with the third workshop, which we can work with the city on figuring out how to really maximize the publication and publicity for that. So those are some things we can do going forward to maximize that.
Okay, thank you. Again, and some of it was resetting my expectation and understanding what should be expected in the community effort.
Mr. President,
Ms. Alexander.
and you might have already said this, you probably did, but at what phase will we see a more prioritized list on what we're going to tackle first? Or are we going to tackle a little bit here and a little bit there? Or will we see, like, hey, we're going to start with land development, and then we're going to work on, I saw transportation up there. At what phase will we be able to see something like that?
I would like to be able to give you guys something to do starting tomorrow in every single category that we work on. But that will be the third workshop. So this second workshop is really kind of like, here's the big ideas for the vision. What's the feedback on this? The third one is going to be, here's the draft plan, and here's how we start moving things forward. We're to kind of focus our energy, our efforts on at the first, once the plan is adopted, and kind of evaluating those kinds of strategies.
And is that winter, spring?
That'd be the late winter, early spring workshop, yeah. And that is a tentative. I'm losing a coworker here in 5 weeks.
No, you're gaining one.
So-
You're gaining one.
The little one will help out.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. President, I got a quick one.
Ms.
Any chance you got the names of those people that wanted to help for the? If you wouldn't mind passing them along discreetly, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you very much.
All right. Yes, thank you, John, Casey, and Jeff, for the presentation and the update.
Mr. President,
Mr. Mosby?
I just wanted to conclude with just one little anecdote that I would like to put in front of council for consideration. I share with the mayor that I had been going through some records, and I went back to look at a task force that was created in 2012 for the purpose of the swimming pool. And one of the first questions that was asked in that task force was, does North College Hill need a swimming pool? And the answer, overwhelmingly, was yes. But I look at us today, and we have no swimming pool. So while anything that we put on paper can look and sound good, the ultimate test is going to be whether or not we actually have the will to carry out whatever plan is presented to us. And that will doesn't just come from the people in the neighborhood. It has to come from administration. It has to come from legislation. We have to have the desire in order to get it accomplished. So I just wanted to, again, just share that. I appreciate the work that Urban Fast Forward has done. I very much appreciate the questions and the concerns that Ms. Dukes-Dean had brought forward, and I certainly can, legitimately you can look at it and say those are very valid questions. I do think that sometimes we do have to dig beyond the surface numbers and look at the things that were happening, as Mr. Young had said. And I think to their point, their personal touch, the individual reach has increased. over the last 6 months. And so I do just want to make sure that council is aware of that. But ultimately, it's all going to always boil down to engagement.
Thank you, Mr. Mosby. Next item on the agenda is the Law Director's report.
Mr.
Mr.
President,
Peters?
I do not have a report this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the Finance Director's report. She is not with us this evening. So before I go to call the members, I do want to mention we've had a few people come in. If you do wish to address council coming up here shortly in our remarks from the audience, just please sign in over here with our clerk, Mr. Hedger, prior. And now we'll go to call of members, starting with Ms. Dukestein.
I would like to, I had a good time at the tree lighting service, so that was good. Thank you. Happy holidays again to everyone. I want to thank North College Hill Police. More recently, they came out to help me with one of my dogs, and we were able to salvage her and, you know, get her the health care that she needed, but ultimately she moved on. And I just really want to thank them because they really went out of their way to accommodate helping me get my dog from underneath my deck. And I just want to acknowledge them publicly for that because they don't always get the acknowledgement that they should get. And I want to thank council and everyone that's been just hard pressed to figure this budget stuff out. We've had a lot of grueling meetings and just all of us putting our noses to the paper trying to get it done and figured out. So thank you for that, and thank you for the special meetings and additional meetings. I want to thank Urban Fast Forward for their presentation and delivery. Thank you for the explanation. And that is all.
Thank you. Ms. DeWald?
I have nothing at this time.
Thank you. Ms. Alexander?
I would like to thank Urban Fast Forward as well for giving us a presentation and answering our questions. I had a great time at the Christmas tree lighting with the singers and the hot cocoa and Santa passing out goodies to all the kids and stuff like that. Also, I would like to thank the police department. I was at the North College Hill High School game this past Friday, and they were there, and especially the newer officers, they were engaging with the students, and it was just great to have their presence there and see them interacting with the students, being part of the community. I got to talk to them one-on-one to see how they were doing, in the neighborhood. They all expressed that, North College Hill was more fast-paced than they thought it would be, but they really enjoyed the sense of community. That's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Alexander. Ms. Zorb?
I would like to say thank you guys for your presentation. I appreciate what you provided for us today. You certainly have a challenge ahead of you, so good luck. You have additional challenges, but good luck to the team as a whole. I would also like to take my hat off to my fellow council members. This is the budget season. It is tough, and we'll get through it. We have to. We don't have a choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Zorb. Ms. Blythe?
No comment at this time.
All right, thank you. That brings us to remarks from the audience. Has anyone signed in, Mr. Hedger?
No one is signed in, Mr. President.
All right, thank you. We'll move to legislation.
Third reading, resolution number 18, 2022, a resolution to approve a credit card policy for city employees.
Mr. President,
Ms. Zorb?
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt Resolution 18, 2022.
Mr. President,
Ms. DeWald?
I'll second that.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion from Ms. Zorb, a second by Ms. DeWald to adopt resolution number 18-2022. Any discussion? Mr. Hedger, please call the roll.
Dukestein,
Yes.
DeWald,
Yes.
Alexander,
Yes.
Zorb,
Yes.
Blythe.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-0.
Thank you. That is our only piece of legislation for this evening, so thank you, Mr. Hedger. We do have a spot for further remarks from the audience as it pertains to tonight's legislation, if anyone wants to address council regarding the legislation we just passed. All right, we'll move to old business, and Ms. DeWald, I believe you wanted to discuss something, so let's do it now.
Yes, sir. We have a special finance meeting coming up this coming Wednesday, and with the new information presented tonight, I wonder if we should even waste our time showing up here with that and working off a budget that is not working. If we're going to have the opportunity to look at something else, a temporary budget, I think we should save our energy for that.
Mr. President,
Ms. Dukestein?
what I would ask is, as for now, the meeting, let's keep it on the agenda, and we can get the email out and kind of go through those things, review, and see what we can discuss on Wednesday, so we can continue to go forward. If it's, I do hear what Ms. DeWald is saying, and so if it is not going to be beneficial for us to spend our energies on this Wednesday, we'll cancel. But for
Okay.
now, let's keep it.
Thank you. Any other old business?
I do have one
Yes, ma'am.
old
Go ahead.
business. I did not say this when it was a call of members. I just want to put the plug out there for the holiday party. I hope everybody comes. That's all.
Thank you. Any other old business? Hearing none, we'll move to new business. Anyone have any new business tonight?
Mr. President,
Ms. DeWald?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Mr. President,
Ms. Zorb?
I will second that.
Motion by Ms. DeWald, second by Ms. Zorb to adjourn tonight's meeting. Any discussion? Mr. Hedger, please call the roll.
Dukestein,
Yes.
DeWald,
Yes.
Alexander,
Yes.
Zorb,
Yes.
Blythe.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-0.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Down and dirty. 1 hour. Look at that.
Mr. Wall.
Are you gonna?
Mr. Wall.